Hello, everyone, and welcome to this very special episode of Kaffee and Kuchen with International's podcast. Today, we have a very special guest. We have Lukacs. How are you, Mr. Lukacs?
All good. Thank you very much. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, sure. It's our pleasure. So, Mr. Lukacs is originally from Hungary, and he's living now in Hamburg. And yeah, he moved here some long time ago. And the very special thing about Lukacs is that he is the administrator of the Facebook group Expats in Hamburg. And if you're not familiar with the group, you will have a link on this podcast or on this video where you can visit the group and see the topics discussed there. The group is very live, it's very vibrant, it has a lot of discussions on things related to international living in Hamburg, in Germany in general, and specifically sure for Hamburg. So I think it is the most used community online for information about living in Hamburg. Yeah. Lucas, we would begin first with some personal background about your life, and about your international experience as an international living in Germany and in Hamburg. So, as far as I know, you moved some long time ago, and was the main reason was your relationship or your marriage. Is this correct?
That is indeed correct. Now, whether you categorize this time as a long time is, of course, up to you because there are people who have been living here since birth. There are people who
Okay.
moved here 20, 30, 40 years ago.
Okay.
Um, I moved here in 2015, late
Okay.
2015.
Okay.
So that's 9 years ago, just about now, 9 years ago. What you said
Mhm.
was also correct. I moved here because of a young lady who is now my wife.
Okay, that's good.
We got married in 2016. And
Okay.
well, my background. Um, I can be categorized a little bit like an IT professional. I've been working in various senior information technology management roles for the past close to 20 years. I started working in information technology in 2005, so that's going to be 20 years next summer, which sounds like a big number to me. I'm 44 years old. Um, I was born in Budapest, Hungary, and I've got two kids with my wife here in Hamburg. A daughter who is 6.5 years old, and a son who is 4.5. The daughter has just started school.
Okay, that's great. Okay, let's go back to the moment when you moved actually from Hungary to Germany. So you moved the girl that became after that your wife. And some people ask, Hungary is still part of Europe, so it's still in Europe. It's not very far away from Hungary, so from Germany, sorry. So was it an easy decision or a hard decision for you to move? Did you with the girl or with your wife to be, did you discuss where you wanted to live and where you want to raise your children? Is it a big difference between living in Hungary and living in Germany? Can you tell us more about
Uh,
this moment specifically?
sure. That's lots of questions all at once. Um,
Mm,
I do have a history of with Germany, I
mm,
must admit. So, I mean, I've got three siblings who live in the south of Germany, Stuttgart. One of them, my younger sister, who has been living there since the late 80s, she
mm.
actually emigrated illegally from Hungary in the communist era. And she basically founded our family link of modern times in Stuttgart in the south. And I spent my teenage years, most of them in the summer, in Stuttgart, in her apartment with her um, during the summer school breaks. And so I did have a link
Mm.
already with Germany. So this was in itself not really anything new to me. As far as the language is concerned, I spent some time in education at the end of the 20th century, so 1999, in Niedersachsen,
Okay.
which would be Lower Saxony for English
Mm,
speakers. Um, and but other than that, I had no formal German language education. Regardless, I'm from a family where languages have a very high importance. So it wasn't really a question whether we speak, whether we learn languages. It was more of a question which languages we would want to learn. And as a child, I already learned ancient Greek, at least reading and writing. I don't really speak the language. And so German was just another one on the list. I'm not trying to make it. I'm not trying to make it, too easy, because I'm fully aware that German as a language can be terribly complicated and really difficult to learn for somebody who has no history with the language. I would categorize myself as one of the lucky ones who actually did have some relationship with the language. And the way I started, I really started speaking German with mistakes. And during my trips to Germany, to the south of Germany, in the early 90s, and then the mistakes slowly went away. Not all of them. I still wouldn't say that I speak flawlessly, but this in itself was definitely a great help for the decision, because I didn't have the problem of not speaking the language when coming here. Now I would ask, why Hamburg? The answer to this question is pretty simple, because my now wife lives here, was already living here a few years when I moved here, and for me it was really kind of a spontaneous decision that I would come to Hamburg. And since she works for one of the biggest employers of Hamburg, Airbus, and she had been working for them for already a few years before I came here, it wasn't really a question. And I was, like I said, I've been in IT management for the past 19 years, 20 years. And by the time I moved here, I was already 10 years with an American IT outsourcing company, who initially had a policy of not allowing working from home at all. Later, they said, okay, work from home, but work from within Hungary. Then when I told them that I would leave the company because I want to move to Germany, they said, okay, let's talk about it again. And I actually stayed with the company while leaving Hungary, my home country.
Okay, that's great. So at the moment of moving, you can say that you had already been prepared for this moment. Because you had connections with Germany before that. So you knew at some time that you will move physically for a long time to Germany, or it was still a question, maybe yes, maybe no.
When I decided to make the move over here, I basically also decided to move my home here. I guess you know what I mean. So it's for me, these decisions are kind of permanent. So I never really considered that this would be a temporary move. I'm not saying that I would forever stay in Hamburg or even Germany, but as long as I like it here and I have no reason to be elsewhere, I will definitely prefer Hamburg within Germany. Although I have, like I said, I have family in the south, and I also have an uncle who lives in Berlin.
Okay, that's great. And speaking of moving, because you already visited Germany many times before moving long term here. So did you have any culture shocks when you moved in 2015, 16, or was it smooth because you already know Germany, you already have been in the south a lot?
I've been to quite a few countries over the past years of my life, and so the situation of being on foreign territory wasn't really anything new for me. But Hamburg, in a way, was still something new to experience and to get used to. But I'm quite good at adapting to new locations, so I don't really have this problem. And but again, I would like to say that I fully understand that for somebody who comes here from New Zealand or even from the Middle East or
Mm,
Ukraine, this is a whole new world. I fully
mm,
appreciate that. I understand that it's not easy for
mm.
everybody. For me, it was not really such a major change. Hamburg and Budapest are obviously different, and Germany and Hungary are twice as different. but
Okay,
uh, but uh, but still, it wasn't really a culture shock for me.
okay, okay. And anything do you remember from your first month or first year? Anything that like was difficult for you to adapt to? Anything that was really not very familiar to you? Did anything happen in the first years when you moved?
I have lots of good experiences
Okay,
that I collected in the first time.
tell
Not
us
all were
some.
good,
Yeah.
but the ones that I remember were good is that um, I was used to the southern dialect, so Schwäbisch, uh,
Ah, okay.
the dialect that's spoken in Stuttgart. And here in Hamburg, we speak a dialect called Hochdeutsch, which
Mm-hmm.
would be the not really the classical Deutsch, but it's the most widely spoken version of the language. So that was a good thing for me. What also surprised me is that um, my experiences with the authorities were all very good. So when I
Okay.
first got my registration papers and I had to get a few documents here notarized and converted into German versions. As you know, this is something that must be done in Germany. Germany is
Yes.
very much paper oriented,
Yeah.
and even my tax declaration was,
Mm,
even though I didn't understand most of it, the
mm,
language was understandable. That was not a problem. It was the complexity that made it hard to understand,
mm-hmm.
and it's also very bureaucratic. So I just, with the with the naivete of a foreigner, I just said, okay, I'll just go and see the tax authority. I walked into the office and I said, okay, here is a bunch of papers. I don't know, 50 pages long. I am done with 10% of it. Now
Mm-hmm.
I need help with the remaining 90%. And then I expected them to slap me with a book of translated explanations, which is not what happened. What they did
Mm-hmm.
instead was uh, they basically asked a few colleagues from the department and also the head of the department of the
Mm-hmm.
tax declarations to come down to the customer support level, and they basically spent the next hour explaining to me what I need to focus on, how I could get some money back from my taxes of last
Okay.
year. And this whole approach was new to me because my
Mm,
experience with Hungary from 10 years ago, 9 years
mm.
ago, was that um, the government basically punishes you for for not understanding their language,
Yes. Yeah.
and it's the approach in general is that if it's too complicated, then pay somebody to take care of it for you.
Mm, mm,
But I was just naive. I said, okay, I'll just go inside there. I speak enough German to make myself understood, and
mm,
whatever happens happens, and it just happened. And
mm,
again, I'm saying that I know I'm a European, so for me it's probably a different experience than somebody
mm.
from completely elsewhere. But uh, I read everywhere, and I have this feedback from lots of people, even within the group, that Germany
Mm,
is very bureaucratic. And
mm,
while I understand that, and I also agree because there's
mm.
lots of documentation, and I haven't seen as many snail mail uh, in my post as I get in an average week in Germany
Mm,
for 20 years.
mm.
In Hungary, I got an average of 2 actual physical letters a month. Here, I
Okay.
get around 10 a week.
Okay.
Germany is very much paper oriented and very
Yes.
much bureaucratic.
Mm,
But this bureaucracy, while I'm sure it's extremely expensive, it still works
mm-hmm,
to a certain extent, of course.
mm.
Have I
Yeah.
answered your question?
Yes. Yes. Exactly. Thank you very much. Um, uh, I can expect now that you have already mastered somehow the language and the dialect of Hamburg, the Hochdeutsch, the standard Deutsch that's spoken in Hamburg. Do you feel that living in Germany for 9 or 10 years, learning the language, speaking the language, have it changed you in some way? Do you think you are a different person now than the person who came here 10 years ago?
Definitely. And I'm not entirely sure that it's only the language that changed me or the culture, but I believe that we all change regardless of the surroundings. So,
Mm,
if I had spent 10 years in Budapest, the last 10 years
mm,
in Budapest, I would have changed. Not necessarily the
mm,
same direction, not necessarily the same
of
way,
course.
but
Mm,
change is not something you can just prevent from happening. It happens whether you like it or not. Um, I Sorry, what was it? The language. Well, sorry,
mm.
what was it about language? Can you repeat the question?
My question was, did the German language and living in Germany change your personality in some way? So did you?
Yeah.
Some
Okay.
people
Sorry.
say I became more strict, or I became more welcoming to the Sunday off day. So do you think it changed you in some way living here and speaking the German language?
Definitely. I think it would be better to ask somebody who has known me for a longer time how much I've changed because, looking at change from the inside is difficult. It's just like asking, whenever we meet somebody who hasn't seen our kids for the past year, they will say,
Mm,
oh, they have grown a lot and your daughter speaks a lot more. And I said, well, I haven't noticed because she always speaks. But, you know, it's since I'm in the middle of the change, I can't really explain the kind of change I'm experiencing. But uh, going back to your question, the languages we speak
mm,
usually have an attached persona, a
mm,
personality. So which is not really role playing, uh, even though it sounds a little bit like that. But we kind of subconsciously put in another personality when we switch to another language.
mm,
People who don't speak multiple languages and people who are just beginning to learn a new language,
mm,
they tend to ask if I translate my sentences first from German into Hungarian and then I try
mm,
to interpret them. But to be honest with you, this is not how it works
mm.
after a while. And do I ever dream in German? That's also a typical question. Can
Okay.
I dream in German? Even though I immigrated officially, so I'm a German citizen. So
Mm,
my Ausweis says Deutsch.
mm,
Um, I I don't feel I don't feel German too much. I'm still a Hungarian immigrant. I'm still a
okay.
European. I have been living here for the past 9 years, but um, and it's very good to have a German state ID. There are some
Mm,
advantages, even though the EU ID is also something useful to have before switching to a German one.
mm,
But um, yeah, so yes, indeed, we do have multiple personalities, kind of as many personalities as languages,
mm,
but they are not as different as you would see in a schizophrenic situation.
mm,
So we think differently when we speak English. We think
mm,
differently when we speak German. And I don't translate German into English or English into German or the Hungarian or any other languages that I understand. They just German stays German and English stays English.
mm-hmm. Okay. And this was actually part of my next question. It was about belonging. So you told me that you are now Hungarian who moved to Germany, and you're not 100% a German, but do you think, maybe for you, maybe generally for anyone, do you think there is, after some time, you can become actually um, a German? Is it like about time? Is it about specific event? Does it happen, or it will be forever that you're an immigrant living in another country?
Um, this is a very broad question because
Mm-hmm.
on one hand, since the opening of borders, and I'm not
Mm,
talking about the Schengen Treaty, but I'm talking about the concept of people relatively freely moving across borders.
mm,
There is no such thing as and here I have to be careful with what I'm saying, the pure nationality. It doesn't exist.
mm,
And so And also, since as I'm sure you're aware, there are solutions like MyHeritage or the DNA tests that will give you lots of surprises about your background. And
Yes.
I've known people who were 100% confident that they were 100% British English,
Okay.
and they
Okay.
turned out to be 30% Irish, 20%
Okay.
French, 11% Polish, and the rest was
Mm.
probably English.
Okay.
And then they had to rethink their their own mind. And
Mm.
uh, I don't really have a national identity in a sense that I feel Hungarian everywhere. I'm just saying that um, um, the simple fact of moving over here to Germany hasn't had such an impact on me that I would say that I'm now German, even though my identity card says that I'm German. And going further on this note, I actually think that it's okay to be German while not being 100% German. It's
Okay.
okay to be a different nationality alongside your original one, and I can fully identify with a German nationality, even though I am of a Hungarian origin. And
Okay.
I think that's the beauty of a mixed culture.
Yeah. Yeah. Understood. Okay, thank you very much. Let's now move the focus from you personally to the group, because you happen also to be the administrator of the Facebook group, the Expats in Hamburg. And maybe many people don't know, like, how did you become the administrator? Did you start the group? Were there already previous administrators of the group? How did you become the administrator?
Right. I cannot give you years. I believe that I joined the group. I am not the founder, absolutely not.
Mm,
I joined the group, I believe, in 2017.
okay.
But I could check the group myself, but I don't want to switch over to Facebook now. It would tell me.
Mm,
Like I said, I'm not the founder. When I joined, I was kind of a relatively silent member,
mm,
reading posts, not posting too much. I think I had maybe 2 or 3 posts before I actually um, submitted my candidacy. And
okay.
then a former admin who is no longer active as an admin but still belongs to the group
Mm,
um, posted about looking for help
mm,
because she was not she didn't feel like having enough time to take care
mm,
of the ever increasing workload in the group.
mm,
And then I, out of the blue, just raised my hand and sent her a private message explaining who I was and why I would think that I would be a good candidate. And alongside, I guess there were 2 or 3 more people who applied for this role.
mm,
And if I'm not mistaken, we were initially made moderators,
mm,
and then later on also admins when she demoted herself to
mm,
a regular member.
mm,
That was not much later, I'm guessing. So in
mm,
2019, maybe.
mm,
So 5 years ago.
mm.
Yeah, sorry, I have to check up on my
No
group
worries.
history, but
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm definitely not the founder.
Mm,
I don't even know who the founder is. I checked
okay.
the group history, and I checked the history of the admin who invited me, and she was invited by somebody of the same last name, but
Mm,
the person who invited her was no longer with the group. So
mm,
that's where I lost the track. And
mm.
I've already seen members who have been with the group for a longer while. So
Okay.
2017, 16, 17 at least.
Mm,
Uh, but so after a while, then I became the admin,
mm,
um, and we experienced a really heavy growth since then.
mm, mm.
Um, I had some experience managing groups that were smaller than this one.
Oh, okay.
Um, I'm saying smaller than now, not smaller than then.
Mm,
When I took over, we were around 4,000 members.
okay.
Now it's 28,000 or
28,000.
27,000
Yes.
something. Yeah,
Mm.
yeah. So I'm pretty hands-on. So I took a look at all the group settings. I went through each and every one of them.
Mm.
I checked all the group rules and asked myself the question: does this make sense?
Okay.
Does this rule make this group a better place?
Mm.
Does this rule take the group where I would want to see it?
Mm.
Um, and then I spent a few weeks on coming up with edited rules, new rules,
Mm.
and I must say that I don't believe I changed any rule,
Okay.
or at least not significantly in the past few years.
Mm.
And what really differentiates this group from other groups is that it's fully moderated. So there's nobody that can just join the
Mm.
group and flood the group with posts.
Mm.
And I think that's a really big advantage.
Mm.
I've had plenty of good feedback, some negative
Mm.
as well, and I'm not shying away from negative feedback as long as it's constructive. So if somebody
Mm.
says that I'm stupid, I will not react to it probably. But if somebody says I disagree with this option, or I would prefer to have a different rule, or I would
Mm.
like to post about something that goes against the rules, and then she asks me,
Mm.
why does it make sense to have this rule? Then I'm always ready to reconsider.
Mm.
I'm not saying that I will change the rule whenever somebody contacts me, because
Mm.
that would be impossible.
Mm.
But I'm happy to improve
Mm.
for as long as I'm here.
Mm. Yeah, that's good. And speaking of the group, you said we have now 28,000 members. I think every week or every 2 weeks you post, you give a post with the members approved for the last 2 weeks or last month or whatever, and also there are members that rejected, new join requests that are rejected, and maybe uh, someone will ask like, on what criteria do you know that this person can be admitted or can be accepted, and others can be or should be rejected? Is it
Okay.
only because of bots or because of fictional accounts, or are there another reason?
I would say primarily bots. So you're
Okay.
right in your reasoning.
Mm.
The post that you're talking about is the Monday welcome message that I like
Mm.
to refer to,
Mm.
which greets new joiners always
Mm.
Mondays at 11
Okay.
a.m. with a list of the first 50 new joiners of that week.
Mm.
It's 50 because Facebook has a limitation of how
Mm.
many people can be tagged in a single post, and I guess it's still 50.
Mm.
Um, Sometimes it's less. I'm
Mm.
not always aiming to reach um, 50 members or more a week.
Mm.
There were weeks when I approved over 200
Mm.
and rejected maybe 50, 60.
Mm.
The way I'm filtering, which is what you asked about, is that primarily questions. There are questions that need to be answered,
Mm.
and if somebody actually reads the questions, then they will give an indication to that.
Mm.
So for instance, there's a multiple choice question that looks for bots. I'm not going to tell you what it is because I don't want anybody to pre-program bots, but uh, it's quite understandable if you look at the question itself, and you can
Mm.
also look at the question even if you're an already active member.
Mm.
There are questions where you need to type a little bit about yourself, how you found the group, and um, there are people who just join groups because they want to join a group.
Mm.
What the parameters I usually check is most importantly, when did they join Facebook? If it was in the
Mm.
past day, week, month,
Mm.
it's not necessarily a bot, but the
Mm.
probability is much higher than usual.
Mm.
People who mess up the multiple choice question are either not paying attention, which is a
Mm.
possibility, and I will not reject somebody for not paying attention. So even
Mm.
though they messed up the multiple choice question, I still read their other replies. So I will
Mm.
not disqualify them just because they didn't read that part.
Mm.
Um, There are obvious indicators to being a bot, like somebody who answers yeah to all questions, or yes, depending on their language. That's that's quite typical. There are some bots who are not even trying not to show not to look like a bot. You know, like there are ChatGPT generated replies to the questions. Like the first question, if I'm not mistaken, is something like, "How did you find out about our group?" And then if somebody writes 20 pages of an explanation which
Okay.
is relatively incoherent about the importance of finding groups in your life, you know, then I have a suspicion, a strong suspicion that you're not a human being, or a human being who uses ChatGPT a lot.
Yes. Yes.
Also, a very strong indicator is, I'm going to keep it politically correct here, but very attractive young ladies in suggestive clothing, with several pictures on their profiles of very suggestive clothing, alongside a registration in the past few weeks. These are usually posts which are there. These are called honey traps on Facebook, because there is a certain segment of Facebook audience that really loves these profiles, and in cases where it's obvious that this person with the highly suggestive pictures is a bot, I reject them. If I have my doubts, then I send them a private message introducing myself as the admin of this specific group, so that they know what I'm talking about and who I am. And then I give them a chance to reply. A few days. Now, if they don't reply within 2 weeks, 3 weeks, I will usually reject them with a comment, "Please check your private messages." So there are multiple layers of giving a chance to somebody who actually wants to join with legitimate purposes. And I'm not, before we have a misunderstanding, I'm not disqualifying somebody for looking good. Okay,
Okay.
that's
Okay.
that's not the thing.
Yeah. Okay. And speaking also of the group, because as you said, the group is fully moderated, so even all the posts are moderated.
Yes.
And of course, I think you receive some of the posts who you have to reject from posting, and some people will say, okay, my post, I see it's okay, I see it's fair to be published, but still I got a negative feedback. So, what are the common mistakes that people do in posting that makes their post don't go through?
My usual reaction to a post that I reject is a reference to the rule that it goes against. So, for instance, if somebody says, "Hello, I just moved to Hamburg. I'm looking for an apartment and a job and the language course," then I say, "Okay, you checked 3 boxes of what we are not doing here.
Okay.
Please read the rules." Every single expat group is about these questions. How do I learn the language, whatever that language is? How do I find an apartment? How do I find a job? And I'm not saying that these are not legitimate questions. They definitely are. But if we start with these questions, if we allow these questions, then that's all the group will be about. And I don't want it to happen, because I think that kind of defeats the purpose of a community, because it's just a flood of these questions. And the majority of the posts rejected are looking for apartments, looking for a language course, or trying to sell something. That's also quite common, which a small advertisement here. We have a marketplace in the group, actually attached to the group. It's another group, a subgroup, where you can buy and sell products. It's also moderated, so it's not a free flood of sales posts from agencies. There are other groups which have another focus. There are groups where you're more than welcome to post about language, about jobs, about apartments, and I'm not saying there is anything wrong with it. It's just not the profile of this specific group, and a very, very, very minimal number of posts are rejected because of language. And I'm not saying talking about languages, but about the language they are written in. So the most rejected language I had so far was Spanish.
Okay.
Lots of people tried Spanish, a few in Turkish, which I expected to be more actually, because quite a few percent of the population of Germany are Turks.
Of
And
course.
I expected a higher number of Turkish
Mm,
posts. One or two Arabic in a month happens also.
mm,
German is quite common. People want to get creative and speak German and to just show people that they understand language, which I fully appreciate. But
mm,
we would like to make sure that every single post is understood by everybody who
mm,
joined this group. And since the primary language of this group is English,
mm,
um, uh, that's also my request to all members, that they keep it in English.
mm,
Same way with comments. Even if it's absolutely obvious to you that the person that you're replying to speaks your language, please keep it to English for the benefit of others.
mm. Yeah, that's great. Okay, these were all my questions for today. As a final thing, do you have anything to share? Anything that we should have discussed that we didn't do? Any message to the group members? I think all the group members will be seeing this recording. So, do you have any final thing to say to the people?
Well, I'm more than happy to be here. Thank you very much
Good.
for. I'm talking about the interview, but I'm also
Yeah,
talking about the
thank,
group. I'm
yeah,
happy to be in the group. I'm happy to be given this to have been given this opportunity to serve this
mm,
community. Um, I'm I'm more than willing to change to improve the group, and let's go on this journey together with
yeah,
everybody.
yeah, sure. Thank you very much, Lukacs.
Thank you, Mohammed.
Thank, thank you. And for our listeners, this was it today. If you like this, please subscribe or follow, and see you in the next episodes.